Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It is May the 27th, and this will be our chart lesson for today. And no chart lessons on Friday, so this will wrap up our week. Also, Monday is Memorial Day holiday, so no trading on Monday, so I won't be in the office. And so it's going to be a long weekend. I'm probably going to take off, so I'll probably be slow to answer any emails or anything like that if you email me. So just be aware of that. Monday is a holiday, and I'll probably take off early tomorrow as well. I'll probably take off around lunchtime tomorrow. So I'm going to try to take a long weekend and enjoy some time away. But interesting day today. We had this trend up during the overnight, and once the regular session, which is where it turns white here, you can see we really struggled to go higher. And I marked this because I want to talk about it. This is an interesting spot right here, what happened. And this is the overnight, or this is the actual high of the range on the daily chart. So if we come over here on this chart, there's those highs right there, and that's what we were bumping into. And by the end of the day, we actually pushed on through there, and you can see the new day has started, and we're actually continuing to move higher at this point. So pretty interesting that we couldn't get through there until just at the close we pushed through there. I mean, it was a really interesting rally there. We'll go back to the intraday chart, but I just wanted to show you this. It looks like we're probably going to push higher now. I really thought we'd go on through this morning, to be honest with you, and we'll talk about that. But notice we had the move up, and there's actually a two-legged correction here. There's actually two legs in this leg, then a correction, then another correction down, and this is actually two legs down right here. And you can see that that's basically a perfect, if I get that right on, that's a perfect measured move to the tick, and then we tested it again before prices took off. So that's what we had there. I actually tried to get a measured move down on the range right there, which is the blue or red line here. And we didn't quite make that one, but we got the two measured legs. And so, and notice we got it to the tick, and then we tested it once more, and then it was off to the races. I mean, all of this happened in the last 15 minutes of trading. We took every bit of that back in less than 15 minutes. Crazy, crazy. Um, but they want they want to take this market higher. That's the bottom line. And so, even though there was a lot of selling and a lot of resistance here, eventually they worked it through. So let's back or zoom in, and we'll go over the trades here. There's quite a few of them today. But anyway, 7 o'clock came just as we're making this move down back to the trend line. There's a first entry there, then a pullback, and that's a second entry long. Fairly decent signal bar. It's 8 ticks, very relatively reasonable size bar. And if you catch that one trade, that may be all you need today, because you definitely get a runner here. And this runs up, and you're getting too far away from the EMA here, and this is too much sideways. Finally, we work our way back. We do get a second entry here that would be interesting if it weren't that this was an inside bar and your channel's still working back. We're not to the trend line. And notice we get the break and two legs back exactly to the trend line, and then we take off again. And you could have looked at this as a second entry. I didn't mark it, but it's a possibility. Notice that this is a double top here. So you could count that as a reset, then first entry, second entry. This is an inside bar, but they're matching lows. So if you took that trade, I'm okay with it. I think you were better off to wait and see if you got a higher low or a failure or something. And you do get a higher low right there with a decent signal bar. There's a little bit of sideways there by that time, so it's a little bit congestive. But with it bouncing off that key entry point and closing above the EMA, you should get a scalp out of this at a minimum. It pulls back here and gives you a failure. I didn't mark it because we were still right at that resistance and we weren't pushing through there really strongly. And you can see it would have worked If you waited on this to close and entered one tick above it, you would have got trapped. Just enough to take you out before it goes higher. So if you did enter this, you'd have to do it. I think the only way to do it is on the engulfing bar, because by the time you get here, you're really close. I didn't like that trade. The fact that we didn't take on off here on a high or low right off that key entry point, that really leads me to think, hey, there's some resistance up here. You got to be careful. And then all of a sudden it pulls back. You get a second entry with another nice signal bar, another high or low, and you actually got a reversal here. And I wanted to talk about this because I actually got caught in this myself. I took this failed second entry short, thinking that when we pushed through there, this thing was going to rocket up, and it did rocket up real quick, but it didn't fill my order. I actually got a little better entry here, but it didn't fill my order, and it came back here, and I thought, well, we're going to be safe this time, and then just in a blink, that thing fell. And so, if you know, this is why you put your safety stop where it goes, because you didn't have time to do anything here. This thing was down here in a blink. And I'm not sure exactly how many points that is from here. So it'd be one tick above 100. Well, that's about right. That's basically 9 ticks, which I felt like I really thought I would have had a bigger loss there than I did. So I was a little surprised. So I really thought that I got a better feel than what I thought I did, but that's not as far. I guess actually falling from here, it felt like it was a lot further fall than where I actually entered, because I entered, it was 9 ticks if you entered with a buy stop, and I actually got in here with a limit order. So I got a little better entry than that. So it wasn't as bad a hit as I was expecting, but it pretty much took most of my morning move away and most of my runner as well, that nice runner I had. So a little disappointing. And, you know, you didn't have time to reverse anything. I mean, as soon as that bar broke lower, I mean, I guess you could have had time to put a reversal in here if you saw what was going on. Sometimes when you're in a trade and you're long, I just couldn't see this reversing. I really thought I'd get that scalp, and that's why sometimes when you think you're smarter than the market, you get burned. And so, I mean, this, you know, and if you don't have your stop in there, this thing was down here for you. I mean, it was here before you could blink an eye, and it didn't take long for it to push on all the way back down. So, you know, I looked to see, I thought, well, maybe some news came out. Maybe it did. I don't know. But I just think that once it broke lower, all these longs had to exit. And there was a lot of sell stops in there, people on the wrong side, including me. And so it rocketed on down. That hurt my feelings, I'll be honest with you. I haven't had a bad read of that in a long time. And actually, if you look back at it, you can see the congestion. It didn't even pull back to the EMA. That's just getting overconfident in your read, and it happens to all of us, even the good chart readers, and that's why I put this arrow here. But so really I should have never entered here, because I wouldn't mark this after the fact. Now that I look at it, I thought, why would I ever enter that? But I thought I was smarter than the market, and that's what happens to you. So looking back at it, I should have been ready for the failure and traded this back down to the low side, because we know there's strong resistance. We've been watching the weekly chart forever. And even though I was pretty sure we'd push on through there, I should have known not to be trying to get through right there. I really just thought it would push up enough to get a scalp. And it almost did. I think we only missed it by, I think it bounced off my order even. If it didn't, it was within a tick of my order. But I think it actually bounced off my order both times here and never filled it. And then all of a sudden it was running the other direction. And you're talking about hurting your feelings. When you see it bounce off of your order and you still don't get filled, it doesn't push through. Because generally when it starts bouncing off, it's just a few minutes before it pushes on through. But anyway, I had a loser there. We bounce here. You get a high or low, but look how there's that doji, no body. there's one, and really you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars kind of going there. You don't want to go long right there. With a move like that, you can expect a second leg. Now, where you're going to get it, we ended up getting the other leg way over here. That's what's so weird about it. But there's a second entry short right there on a failed second entry long. I like that trade. I took that trade as well. This time I was ready for them. Although I didn't get the runner, I really thought I was going to get this measured move, and it just didn't happen. But still, nice runner. And then it bounces. And if you're really quick there, there's a second entry long, and notice we made the low. We test it once, we test it twice. That's a triple test of that low across there. This line should be just a tad higher. So that's a triple test right there. That looks like rejection. Even though it didn't take off real fast, it still works out. I really thought it would probably go back to the high there. I didn't think we were going to get the next leg down, but lo and behold, what you expect to happen and should happen still happens. It's just your timing, and that's what usually gets you. If you get your read correct, you still have to get your timing correct, and that's when the patterns come in. And if you just stick to the patterns and kind of stick to the rules, sometimes your timing will be off still. There's nothing you can do about it. And my timing was off here, but I still stayed with the rules. I took the trap and the second entry short with the nice signal bar, and it's a nice trade. And that would have been a nice, and even here, even though it takes a few minutes, it's still a good read. Your triple test off of that support, nice signal bar showing rejection there and a build of buying right there. And doesn't take long, and then all of a sudden you find that midline resistance, and this thing turns down, and look at that bar right there. You may not have had time to get into this because it just kind of rocketed straight on down again. So I marked it, but I don't know that you could have got in that trade. I really don't. We get the failed breakout here. We get a first entry, then a second entry, and you would expect we're going to go higher here. I like that one. I thought I was really going to have a bad day, but it doesn't break lower and it goes higher right there. And that's why you don't try to, when you start seeing it looking like it's going to back up, that's why I tell you, don't monkey around with your trades. Trust your reads if you're a good chart reader, because if you don't trust your read here, you probably let this scare you out only to go exactly where you thought it was going to go. If you didn't enter here, and by this time it's congestion, and I wouldn't enter this trade. So even here, there are 3 bars inside, and this one has a small body. But you'll see a lot of reversals like that. That didn't scare me too bad. But when this bar ended like this and you got another doji, no way I'm entering again, even though it goes on and continues on like I expected it would. But I think the smart traders were being extra wary and vigilant about their entries at this point, because normally that would have taken on off and it didn't. So people were waiting on more. And even here, it looked like it was going to go higher again, and it still ended at neutral. And then finally, once it broke higher, then everybody says, okay, we're going higher for sure. And you could pretty much count on it when you got back to the trend line and made that little double bottom there. But with all that congestion, and after this right here, I wasn't about to enter again. I just held on to the one I had. We run on up, you make a new high, and then you make that double touch. It's like a little repeat pattern. That's the reason I like this one. It looks just like this over here, right at the mid resistance, and it takes it a minute, but it keeps going down. But notice you make that double top, then you got a first entry, you push through the EMA, you got a second entry, it fails, it confirms that trend line, it actually breaks higher, turns down. I like going short right there. And again, it takes it a minute, but it works out. You actually try to go higher twice more, but you never make a new swing high here. So, there's no new recount here. And even though that looks like a failure, I wouldn't trade that. If you just wait, you get a second entry short, and then you get a break higher and a lower high. Again, I don't think I would wait for this bar to close, especially with that inside. When this broke higher, I'd want to enter on the engulfing bar, but most, if you're a fairly new trader, don't enter on engulfing bars. Wait for them to close, and then by that time, this bar it's only 11 ticks. I thought it looks a lot bigger than that, but yeah, it's only 11 ticks. So I just don't like going short right into the lows there. It's almost a double bottom. But that trend line's really clear, and you can see the measured move is way down here. So there's still reasons to hang on there, maybe take that trade. But then we come down here and you make another double bottom, then first entry and it turns higher and you get a second entry right there. Breaks higher and turns down. Again, if you don't go short on the engulfing bar, and you wait on this bar, I'd let it break and then drop a limit order and try to get a little better entry because you're too close to those lows. And if you don't do that right here, you get burned again, only to see it go right where you think it's going to go. So as you get, I talked about this on the forum yesterday or today, sometime or another, and somebody asked about it. But the further you get into a trend and you get closer to the end, the more apt to have a failure. I mean, all trends eventually come to an end. You just got to hope that you don't get a good setup on the final, but sometimes you do, and it turns out to be a trap. So it's just not much you can do about that. And so just remember, the longer you are into this trend, at some point you're probably going to get a failure. And if you'd have waited and went short right here, one tick below that bar, then you get a failure right there on a good second entry with the trend. And you'll be asking, why did I have a failure there? Well, at some point that will happen, but you can again see 1, 2, 3 bars in congestion, and if you're not sure about your read, stay out of those. I mean, there's no rule that says you can't enter in congestion because I'll point this trade out like this, and then somebody will say, well, I thought you said to stay out of congestion. Well, if you're not a really good chart reader, stay out of congestion. And the reason is because it'll save you a lot of losses. But you're going to miss a lot of good trades too. So as you get better and you start to understand why there's congestion there, then maybe you start trading it. And the reason there is congestion here is because this is running out of steam. And normally when you came back to the EMA, the sellers would pile on, but now you're getting more buyers and probably less sellers, and they start to equal out. And so here I think you've got the early buyers and they run out of steam, and the sellers are all coming back in, and hopefully there's enough to drive it back down, but you need to have enough room because this might happen to you. When it comes back again, the ones that didn't get in the first time will say, hey, if it comes back, I'm going to jump in the next time, and they do. And then especially when they see this higher low, they get a little more momentum on their side. But notice what you end up getting. You get 2 legs up, and there's a 2-legged correction in the middle. So once that 2 legs up, it makes another move down to a new low. Notice we never made a new low there. Now you got room to make that new low, and so the sellers get a little more brave. They got more room there, although you didn't really get a good setup. So for our strategy, some other strategy might have, they may take that trade, but we're not going to take it because we know better. And so that was it. That was what I saw today. Relatively straightforward. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Even this was not, even this, not to enter in congestion at the highs of the day, especially on a weekly chart that's been showing you. I mean, don't enter into a weekly chart with resistance, or you've turned down 3 days in a row, and this is your 4th day, and you're finding resistance there. Not a smart move. So if you do that, you get burned. And so I don't know how many of you got burned with me. I'm guessing that probably a few of you did, because recently when you see those breakouts higher, they just keep going. Well, this wasn't one of those days. This is very important resistance here, and even though we pushed on through, doesn't surprise me that we failed a few times first. So we'll see what happens here. But I would expect prices, generally they'll come back, and if they're going to go higher and test this breakout, they'll act as support. So by tomorrow, do we come back and test this? Do we do it during the overnight? We'll see. But it won't. But we could go much higher before that happens. It could just keep going. I mean, we broke it out down here twice, and both times it failed. And I guarantee you, both times it trapped a lot of shorts. And when it goes out this other side, a lot of them are going to have their stops over here, so you may get that run on up, which is what I thought we were going to get this morning, and I was outsmarted myself. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope y'all had a good week. We'll be back again. Won't be till Tuesday, but I'll see you on Tuesday. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next